Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Friday night live stream. Hope you're all very well this evening. Hope you had a nice week. So what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, of course, what's happening in the NHS, what's happening with Reform UK, a bit of a hargy-bargy there, and a little bit about what's happening with benefits and the economy. So before we begin, I just want to say thank you to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you for smashing the like button. I'm sure you've already done it, like very good subscribers. And thanks to the moderators in advance for the hard work they're going to put in tonight. So let's start off with our first story, which of course is, well, related to benefits and the DWP. No Trump. No, well, I promised to consider not talking about Trump tonight. Can I put it like that? So the government have decided, of course, to make changes to, or are planning to. We're going to see. Well, they were supposed to hear this week about it, but we didn't hear anything. So we'll probably have to wait for the spring statement. But it's looking likely that there will be changes to PIP and universal credit. So here is somebody who sent a message into Sky News podcast about this.
Come the spring statement, there's going to be a ton of cuts to welfare, but they're not telling anywhere where these cuts are going to fall. And quite understandably, there's a lot of people that feel quite nervous about this. In fact, we've had a message in from Arthur, who sent us a voice note.
Hi guys, my name's Arthur, I'm 30, I live in Newcastle and my mum's carer, she gets PIP. I get universal credit and carer's allowance. I'm just wondering what the panel make of Labour's recent changes to the benefits, because it's got everyone worried, including me and me mum.
I don't know Arthur's situation, only just what he said in the voice note. But we also have to remember at this that without sort of family carers or friendship carers, so unpaid carers out there, the country would be in a really difficult place, because the social care is completely on its knees. If the Tory party had anything about them in how they approached Labour doing something that's going to be difficult and that will have backbenchers up in arms, I mean, they would be running stories or lines about how, you know, since Labour have come in 7 months, they've shown they hate pensioners, they hate business and they hate farmers. Why do they hate the disabled too? But they won't, because they're all over the shop.
Well, I think it is.
It's not that they're all over the shop. It's that the Tories don't care about the disabled. See, the Tories, when it comes to farmers, are using farmers. They realise here's something we can use to beat the government over the head with. When it comes to pensioners on the winter fuel allowance, here once again something that they can use to beat the government over the head with. Now, I'm completely in agreement when it comes to the winter fuel allowance. It was a terrible mistake politically and a terrible mistake economically. It doesn't add anything. It actually is more expensive when it comes to what you end up having is people relying more on the NHS. So there's no economic benefit. And of course, there's no political benefit either. But when it comes to the disabled, the Tories don't give a crap about the disabled. Crap. Hold on.
Undoubtedly a difficult issue. But I think that Number 10 knows that Labour MPs are very worried about it. And unlike with the winter fuel payments or with the overseas aid cuts, they've had 2 solid days of getting MPs into Number 10 back to back for round tables, listening to their concerns, taking that on board. And ministers have been actually proactively reaching out to MPs and getting them in. So they're doing a major political management operation.
She's looking at it from the political point of view and not the ethical point of view. Like, where is the ethical justification for freezing PIP and making these changes to universal credit? Because what's happening with PIP is, if it's frozen, then in reality it's a cut. Because with inflation means that the support they get is not going to go that extra mile that's necessary to cover the costs of being disabled. And we know that if you're disabled, everything is much more expensive. So Harriet Harman is looking at the political aspect here. But isn't it great that the government brought in MPs to hear their concerns? How do they need to hear concerns? Do they not understand that if you're freezing Pip, it's going to damage the most vulnerable in society. It's nonsensical. I think I can't find any political commentator who supports this, who thinks this is an actual good idea. We need to get a grip on welfare, Chancellor says, as controversial cuts widely expected. Once again, none of this has been confirmed. I think a lot of this is a kite flying exercise. David McGuinness is on the stream tonight. Great to see you, David. Check out Indie Truck Davies, the Two Davies YouTube channel. But I think this is a kite flying exercise in the sense that they're putting out this information to see what the result will be from, the feedback from the public and from MPs. And it's been pretty negative. But I don't know if they're actually going to do a U-turn on it or not go ahead with it. The Chancellor has insisted that we need to get a grip on the welfare budget, saying that the current system is not working for anyone. Rachel Reeves says the bill for welfare is going up by billions of pounds in the next few years, and argued the system should get people into work so that more people can fulfill their potential. I keep saying, we're heading down a road where AI, robotics, automation is going to replace a lot of jobs. And the government, their position is, well, we need to get people into jobs. Okay, what jobs? Get people, move people into positions where there aren't positions available. And there are no long-term prospects in these jobs either. So you're forcing people off entitlements. I hate calling them benefits, because a benefit gives you the impression that it's something extra, but these are entitlements. Forcing people off these entitlements into jobs that have no real future, no real prospects for the future. But it's always, you go back to the headline, get a grip on the welfare budget. But what about going after the people who have money? The richest in society, the multimillionaires, the billionaires, these are the people who have huge amounts of wealth that you could skim a little bit off the top of it, 5% or something like that, and you would bring in a huge amount of money. But the government's decision is, no, we're not going to touch the non-doms, we're not going to touch the richest in society. We're afraid of these people, well, because they donate to the political parties. Daily Blase, great to see you on the stream tonight. Hope you're well. It's, you should be going after the people who have money, not the people who don't. And this is austerity. What other way can you describe this other than austerity? How about going after corporate welfare? Exactly. There are companies, the oil companies, for example, get huge amounts in subsidies every year. Well, why don't you cut off those subsidies? Max, do you think Starmer will be replaced if those cuts are made? He won't be replaced by this. This won't be the thing that'll bring him down. We'll have to wait and see what sort of pushback there will be within Parliament if a significant number of MPs rebel. And it would require a significant, because if he wasn't able to get the legislation through, or there was a huge rebellion, and I'm talking about over 100 MPs. If 100 MPs or more rebelled, then this would send a clear message that the government are going in the wrong direction. But I don't know if that's actually going to happen. Have you seen Matt Green's Tough Decisions video? Yes, I have. You'll see it later. The people with money have lawyers. We don't. Well said, Killer. The people. Wasn't it Rachel Reeves who met with multimillionaires and then changed her position on non-doms? Has she met with organizations representing the disabled? I don't think so. What about all the tax they know people and companies owe and they do not ask to pay? It's easier just to squeeze people who are at the very bottom, as Killer has pointed out, people who are in no position to protect themselves financially. No, they have no influence over Parliament. They have no expensive lawyers they can throw at the problem. I say it again: tax the rich. it seems to be the way to go, but nobody wants to go down that road. No one within government wants to go down that road. We constantly hear, well, if you tax the rich, they'll leave the country. No, some of them may leave, but their assets remain. See, when I think about, what's the guy with the teeth? What's his name? Charlie Mullins. With the turkey teeth. When Charlie Mullins talks about, well, I left the UK because the tax system, whatever. His business, Pimlico Plumbers, is still in the UK. Pimlico Plunker. His business is still in the UK. So the business is working. The business is doing well. It's making a profit. He's probably getting some money sent to Spain or wherever he is. But the business is being taxed in Britain. So when we hear about millionaires moving, well, the millionaires can literally move, but their assets generally can't. A business that's making money for them, or land, or buildings, these things are a bit more difficult to lift and stick on a plane or whatever, and move to an offshore country. Sorry, an offshore tax haven. Hi, Max. You're my hero. Keep up the... Oh, thank you very much. Very kind of you, Mersey Who Girl. Great to see you on the stream. Even the UN has started to slate Labour and the DWP over the 2-child benefit cap and 5-week wait when forced onto universal credit. I remember Tony Blair talking about making poverty history. He's also talking about getting rid of homelessness, but they were talking about let's end poverty. And you could end poverty. It's not that expensive to end poverty. And it's very simple. All you need to do is spend a bit of money. Now, the government can spend money if they want. They can borrow. They can increase taxes on the rich. They can do these things if they want. But they have decided, look, for the cameras, it's good to talk about defeating homelessness or defeating poverty. But when the rubber hits the road, we decide, actually, it's not really in our interest. Max, thanks so much, Alistair. Great to see you on the stream tonight. Thanks so much, Alistair, for that super chat. Max, all the Scottish Labour MPs vote for the Scottish people. Scottish Labour MPs better vote for the Scottish people. Betterment, the Scottish people's betterment, or they're gone the next election. And Labour MSPs will be gone too in the 2026 Scottish government elections. Yeah, I think it's going to be really difficult for the Labour MPs. And I've always talked about how the Labour MPs in Scotland have a massive problem, because if they vote with Westminster, the government in Westminster, then they're going to make the lives of people in Scotland more difficult. And how they're going to sell that to people on the doorstep. On the other hand, if they rebel, then they'll be in trouble, because they will distance themselves from the party, and then the party may punish them over that. It's not, what you see in the House of Commons is a bit of theatre where, Labour MPs in Scotland or in Wales stand up and they criticise, the SNP or Plaid or whatever, because they don't really have any questions to ask. They'll say something like, why is the SNP government not doing X, Y, or Z? And, well, the government, the UK government can't really respond because it's normally a devolved issue. Or they'll just say, yes, my right honourable friend is correct that the SNP are failing in Scotland or whatever like that. So it's just pointless theatre. I think that's all they're reduced to. They're not actually doing anything for their constituents. Ninja, thank you so much for that super chat. Labour equals Tory light. It's, they painted themselves as, vote for us, we're not going to be like the Tories. And look, some of the things that they've been putting through, for example, when it comes to changes in workers' rights, are much better than what the Tories had on in their manifesto. But when it comes to things like for the poor, the poorest in society, the most vulnerable in society, the Labour seem to be doing things that the Tories wouldn't even consider. Max, do you think Farage is toast? Farage has a very good ability of coming back from the dead, in a sense. I think the Rupert Lowe thing is a significant problem, but it's not really a problem for people outside the Westminster bubble and the Twitter sphere. I think it's most people don't know who Rupert Lowe is. They wouldn't be able to name all Reform UK's MPs. So while online it's a big thing, and while in Westminster it's a pretty big thing, I think Farage will be okay. I think he'll weather this storm. It's doing him damage, certainly, and there are a lot of people within Reform UK who are not too happy about this, but I think he will weather this storm. Sauer will do what Stormer says. But Sauer said there would be no austerity, didn't he? So just a bit more on this, and then we'll move on to our next topic, I promise. There is no moral case. Labour divided over prospect of benefit cuts. So from The Guardian, it says here, ever since ministers began to put the moral case for cutting spending on UK benefits, I hate calling them benefits because they're not really benefits, they're entitlements. Emotions have been running high among Labour MPs. The argument being made before next week's welfare green paper that Labour is the party of work, has a duty to reduce welfare costs. The left are furious and others angry at those who are furious. Yes. At Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday, Keir Starmer was repeatedly forced to defend his argument. Labour MPs seized on the opportunity to underline that disabled people had become frightened hearing their party use the language of tough choices. Starmer was urged to provide compassion to those who cannot work. Jeers after he spoke encapsulated the mood on his benches. You know, there's no justification for cuts to, as I keep saying, the most vulnerable in society, the disabled. What is the point of having a government if it doesn't look after the well-being of all, but in particular those who are struggling the most? Do they hate the poor in Italy too? Yes, but in Italy it's a bit more complicated because we have a north-south divide, and the northern people, the right wing in the north really hate the southerners, and the southerners hate the immigrants. So it's there's always somebody to punch down. PIP going up by £3.15 a week on the highest rate, 1.7. I thought it was going to be frozen. The world has changed in the last month, though. Everyone has to reflect on positions where they stand now. Whatever will people do with an extra £3? Imagine the possibilities. So we're prone to telling pork pies. Chances of Farage's success in Wales. I think Reform will do quite well in Wales, unfortunately, because of the way the voting system works. So I think Reform will do quite well. Not that they're actually going to do anything for the people of Wales, but I don't think they'll do very well in Scotland. But we'll have to wait and see. Some people are thinking that the Trump effect may harm Nigel Farage, but I don't think so, because people will vote on local issues. And if they're not happy with the Tories and they're not happy with Labour, then they'll probably vote for Plaid, or they'll vote for Reform in Wales. Max, I recall you and your morning brew crew smugly mocking people like Owen Jones when they quit Labour. You now have the Red Tories in charge. I don't remember. I wasn't I don't remember mocking Owen Jones. I disagree with some of his positions, but I don't remember mocking Owen Jones. Welcome to Victorian Britain. Well, when it came to the election, the option was the Tories or Labour. And the Tories are absolutely terrible. So are Labour better? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. Like, there are things Labour are doing. I'm no fan of Labour. I'm not here to defend Labour, but there are things Labour are doing when it comes to workers' rights, which are much better than what the Tories were doing. The Tories, remember, were backing fire and rehire, so that should be going out the door. When it comes to the two-child benefit cap, a lot of these measures that the Tories would have probably gone through with measures. We don't know what they would have done, but looking back at 14 years, the Tories were instrumental when it came to imposing austerity. So Labour are following in their footsteps in many ways, but not in all ways. I can buy a new toothbrush. Wow. No, it's not a huge amount of money, is it? PIP award is frozen. All benefits are due to increase 1.7% with inflation. However, energy costs are due to increase as well, and food prices and fuel. Yeah. So why are benefits, or entitlements as they should be called, why are they not linked to inflation automatically? I think Reform UK could lose in Scotland because they were the Brexit party. Yeah, Brexit is not very popular. So I think because in Wales there's a lot of there was a huge influx of English voters over the last number of years. People who've moved out of London or moved out of the richer parts of England and moved to areas in Scotland. So they will generally vote for the Conservatives or vote for the right wing. So there's a good chance that Reform will do well in Wales, sorry. But in Scotland, it's not really the case. Unless there's tactical voting. There could be tactical voting to keep the SNP out. And I think it's already happened on a number of occasions where Labour and the Tories work together to fight the SNP. And there have been, I don't quote me on this, but I think there have been cases where Reform council election, where there was Reform and Labour were working together to keep the SNP out. Max, do you think that Reform UK has a point that Labour and the Conservatives are a uni-party? Well, they are a uni-party in many ways. See, the problem with Reform is that they're not presenting something better. They're a party of rich people for rich people. There was the Workers' Rights Bill, and Reform voted against it. Like, Nigel Farage presents himself as a man of the people. Lee Anderson talks about the People's Army. But what people? Is it like very rich people? Like Lee, with the exception of Lee Anderson, pretty much everyone else in the party at the top level is a millionaire. Nigel Farage, city trader, private school boy. Richard Tice, property magnate, private school as well, I believe. Murdoch guy, I'm not sure about him, but was the treasurer, multimillionaire. Rupert Lowe, multimillionaire. Like, now Rupert Lowe, of course, is gone, but the senior people within Reform, and then they're cozying up to ex-Tory donors. They're not reaching out to the working class. They're presenting themselves as a working, or a party of the working class, or a party of Middle England even. But they're multimillionaires, and they vote for policies that benefit multimillionaires. Millionaires' role, exactly. Inflation massively underrepresents increases in rent, so just keeping benefits up with inflation is never enough. That's a good point, yes. That's why they have housing benefits. But over the last 15 years, that's been reduced. Like, if house prices are going up and rents are going up, then why shouldn't housing benefit go up along with rents? Like, what's the justification against doing that? If you're saying, well, we're not going to increase housing benefit in relation to rising rents, then what you should do is say, okay, we're going to build more council houses, more affordable and social housing. I bet you're all glad that the UK doesn't have PR. Otherwise, you could have a Tory Reform coalition government. Although you could have a Labour Green coalition government as well. So that's, swings both ways. What's bad about the recent Reform shenanigans is the legal bills are picked up by the taxpayer. No, is that true? Isn't it an internal issue? All that Labour have done in my lifetime is move to the right. It's getting difficult to defend Labour, isn't it? You know, I understand people's criticism of, you know, those of us who said, look, if you want to get the Tories out, you need to vote tactically. And in many cases, that would be... I had said in the run-up to the election, you know, you have to vote tactically to get the Conservatives out. And in some cases, that meant voting for Labour. Sometimes that meant voting SNP. That meant voting for the Lib Dems. It meant voting for the Greens. But it wasn't so much a case of get Labour in, but get the Tories out. And of course, you know, in some ways, the Tories have not gone out. Although the alternative was for the Tories to remain in power. And I think they would have doubled down on the things that they were pushing. For example, immigration. Their whole thing was stop the boats, and they were willing to spend almost £1 billion on cash to Rwanda. So that would have continued. I know certain channels that will defend Labour until they dropped. No, look, I've never... I'm not on the side of any political party. If a party's doing something good, I'll commend them for that. If they're doing something wrong, I'll call it out. And I've always been doing that. You know, whether it's the Tories or Labour... If I criticise Labour, it actually harms the channel, because whenever I put up a video about Keir Starmer and I'm criticising Keir Starmer, these videos don't do very well. But I think it's important that they're put out there. You know, I'm not on the side of Labour. I'm not on the side of any political party. And I think it's important not to pick sides, because as soon as you start picking sides, then you have to go down a sort of road to hell. I have nothing against anyone picking a side, but it puts you in a position where you have to defend things that you may not be very happy defending. I like what Gary Stevenson is doing, promoting a wealth tax. Yes. I remember I had Gary Stevenson on. I was one of the first to have Gary Stevenson on. I had him before he became famous. No, I'm joking. But no, he's doing a wonderful job, and he's collaborating, I believe, with the patriotic millionaires who are campaigning for a wealth tax as well. So there are very rich people in Britain who want to be taxed more. The right-wing response to them is, well, just write a check. But writing a check is not going to change anything. So they are pushing for legislation. They're pushing for a change in the tax system. And they're a very, very small minority. They're a minority of a minority. But they are pushing hard to change the system. And hopefully they succeed. I had Gary Stevenson. I didn't mean it like that. Get your mind out of the gutter. So guys, we're about halfway through the stream, so let's take a short comedy moment, and we'll be back in just a jiffy with more serious stuff. Hope you enjoy this.
Are you a government that promised not to raise taxes or cut spending and just kind of hoped that nothing bad would happen in the meantime? Did you tie yourself up in fiscal restraints so tight that you now can't fiscally breathe? Are you all in for growth but all out of ideas and can barely acknowledge that Europe exists? Then you need tough choices. Just a few applications of tough choices will help you balance the books and make you look ruthless and decisive, the kind of bad boy that hero voters might like to choose. Want to find savings? Then take the tough choice to reduce money for disabled people. Need to buy more guns? Then take the tough choice to slash foreign aid. Don't want to raise taxes on the rich? Then take the tough choice to cut benefits instead. By making these tough choices, you'll show those special voters that you're not afraid to make difficult decisions by looking pained whilst doing the things they think you should be doing anyway. It's a win-win. But beware, sometimes an option might look like a tough choice, but it's actually just a bad idea. So, every time you make a decision that might hurt people, just think, do those people have money, power, or influence? Might you bump into them in a TV studio, or a dinner party, or a conference, or your house? If so, then stop. That's not a tough choice. That's just a bad idea. But if those people are poor, poorly, or poorly understood, then you're on the right track. Making their lives harder is straightforward. which is what makes it a tough choice, and you'll look tough doing it, because you don't want to do it, which makes it a no-brainer. So remember, tough choices make you look tough. Bad ideas help nobody. Well, help nobody get re-elected. And after all, isn't that why you're in politics in the first place?
Oh, yes, very good. I like the even in your own house. Okay, guys, before we move on, so thank you very much, Cavan Lad. Thanks for that support there. Anyway, let's move on to our next topic, which is, of course, Reform UK. Reform UK's Andrea Jenkins says Nigel Farage row with Rupert Lowe was clearly a big falling out, but insists it will blow over. Please blow over. So, Reform UK's most senior woman. Is there any other woman in Reform UK? There's only one senior woman anyway. Most senior woman has told Sky News the Rupert Lowe row doesn't look great, and she doesn't want to see it in the news anymore. So stop talking about our row, the row between Nigel and Rupert. Dame Andrea Jenkins, who defected to Reform last year, accepted it was clearly a big falling out, but suggested these spats do not always cut through to the public. No, well, she's right there. Like, the public, your average voter doesn't know who Rupert Lowe is. They know who Farage is. They've seen him on TV all the frigging time. So anyone who doesn't know who Nigel Farage is has been probably living on the top of a mountain or under a rock. But yeah, they don't care. What have the police said? I don't know. The police have not come back with any information. It's very difficult to follow this, because Reform say one thing, then Rupert Lowe says another thing, and then Reform says something different, and then Rupert Lowe's lawyer says something different. I don't know who's telling the truth. It's possible everyone's lying. You know, we are talking about Reform UK here, so I don't know who's telling the truth. I don't know who started it. I don't know who's going to finish it. It goes on to say, in an interview with Sky News, Dame Andrea is Italian. Andrea also spoke for the first time about her experience of domestic abuse, denying Reform has a woman problem, but accepted that we need to start talking more about the issues that women are interested in. Having lost her seat as a Conservative in the 2024 election, Dame Andrea, I'm just going to call her Andrea, I hate calling her Dame, briefly quit politics only to return earlier this year as Reform's newest recruit. She's now standing as the party's candidate to become the first Greater Lancashire mayor in a race that secessionists think could be Reform's first hope of turning itself into a party of protest into one that is governing. I think she's been meeting with farmers a lot, and I really wish that the Labour Party or the other parties would call her out on Brexit. Like, how is it possible? This is something I really don't understand with the Labour Party. So, moving away from Labour policies, this is just rhetoric or just politics in general. Why is the Labour Party not talking about Brexit? Like, every time they say, okay, we need to cut X, Y, and Z, why did they never bring up Brexit? When it came to the farming, like, there were ample opportunities every time the Conservatives, Kemi friggin' Badenoch, or Reform UK, somebody from Reform UK talks about farmers, that why doesn't Labour respond by saying, yes, but you threw them under a tractor with your Brexit? Why does no Labour MP ever say this? Is there some sort of code of silence when it comes to Brexit? There's an opportunity there. You could say, look, we would like... The reason we have to introduce the inheritance tax is because of Brexit. So this is a message to the farmers. If you're angry, don't be angry with us. Be angry with Nigel Farage. Be angry with the Tories. Be angry with Reform, because they supported the Brexit, or they implemented the Brexit that made you poor. That's what they should be saying. Why aren't they saying that? If I was a Labour MP, I would be banging on about every time. I'd go down to the farmers' protest. I would meet them face to face, and I would say, the reason you're in this situation is because of Brexit. Why are you welcoming Nigel frigging Farage? And I'd wait for their response. She ain't nothing like a... Because Starmer will make Brexit work. So hard to knock the thing that you want to stick with. He will make Brexit work because he voted for the TCA. I remember at the time when the vote came in for the TCA, I said Labour should not vote for it. They should have a free vote or they should abstain. But Starmer whipped the party to vote for the TCA. And then straight after they start criticising the TCA. I just don't get it. Sorry, I missed Brad's comment. Alistair, thank you so much for that comment before. Sorry, I missed it. 2 years plus. Well, time has flown, and to keep up with the excellent work that you do, Max, it's appreciated big time. Thank you so much, Alistair. Sorry, I missed your comment from before. Let me look for Brad's comment. I could do reform now blowing over, so I can get rid of this. Too much information, Brad. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness! I these comments from Brad. I'm not gonna ban Brad. The milkshake one, the mistake everyone makes is confusing farmers with landowners. Yes, the small farmers are not the ones that are facing the brunt of this. It's the big landowners, and they are the ones, like, you know, the Dysons of this world, who have huge tracts of land, and they are worried about, you know, what's his name, buying a farm to avoid inheritance tax. So he's upset about that as well. Labour shifted to the right with Starmer, and now Labour are out-Torying the Tories. I'm afraid so in many cases. The useless Jenkins was an MP here in Leeds. Thankfully not my MP. And she wants to be mayor now. What is she going to do as mayor? Sweet FA, I think. Like, what did she do when she was an MP? As you pointed out, nothing. What's the point in these people? Like, we'd love to ask these, why do you get into politics? But they can't say, well, it's to help people, because obviously if you're in politics, you'd be trying to help people, but you're not. You're doing the opposite. Could Labour go back to a rejoin EU party? Not yet. I think Labour are not in any way approaching the idea of rejoining the European Union. Not for now, anyway. It could happen in the future, but at the moment, no, it's not going to happen. They'll have to be pressured. But I really don't understand why Labour MPs, I'm not expecting the leadership, but Labour MPs should be pointing out, look, why are we making these cuts? Now, they could use it as a political tool. They could say, the reason we're cutting all these things is because of Brexit, because the economy is sucked under Brexit. You know, why is the economy doing so badly? Because of Brexit. Why are we cutting all these services? Because the economy is doing so badly. Now, it's not completely honest, because, you know, if you want to invest in public services, you can, but it's not completely untrue. And I really don't understand why Labour aren't using this as a tool. Like, point the finger at Kemi. She campaigned for Brexit. Why aren't you talking about this? Anyway, let's move on. Sticking with the economy somewhat. Just cover this.
Opening time at the Castle Pub in Farnham. Serving the prosperous Surrey commuter belt, you might hope this part of the economy at least was doing well. But today's official figures show the economy is weak, and even here the outlook is uncertain.
Our industry is under enormous pressure. We're seeing the economy stagnate as a result. So it certainly isn't a surprise to anybody in our sector that the economy is not growing the way the government wants it to.
The UK economy shrank by 0.1% in January, worse than expected. And that follows poor monthly numbers stretching back nearly a year, with December's strong 0.4% increase looking more like a blip. The pubs and restaurants industry, like many others, blame the Chancellor's decisions in the last budget for the slowdown. A higher minimum wage, a rise in national insurance contributions, an increase in business rates. Mark Robson says all these changes add £250,000 to his costs.
We are really looking down the barrel of a shotgun at the moment. It's very, very desperate. People are genuinely very, very worried. They're very fearful.
So I don't know if this is legitimate or if it's just scaremongering. Because if you look at it just on the surface, it sounds pretty terrible. So you have higher higher minimum wage, but then if you look at, okay, higher minimum wage means, well, people who are working have more money in their pockets and they're going to spend more money, obviously. So this would help the local economy. So this is a positive. So for businesses, they will say, well, this is a cost, so this is something bad. But if everyone is getting a higher minimum wage, then people, obviously, when it comes to luxury restaurants or bars, whatever, it's not really going to be an issue. But if you have a higher minimum wage, means more people have money. So people spend money. It's not like bankers or multimillionaires who hoard it or buy assets. People spend the money they receive. So I'm not fully on board with the idea that this is bad for business. It could be, because, higher national insurance, not everyone will be covered under national insurance, but higher national insurance means something is a cost that has to be passed on. And then if there are other taxes that have gone up as well. I think it's not so much government policy, it's more about energy, and general inflation is a problem. But also I think when it comes to pubs and restaurants, it's not so much the costs within the budget. I think people just don't have money to spend. People are worried about the future and they're deciding not to go out and have meals, or they're not going to the pub. I think it's the societal change that's also having an impact here. But it's easy just to say, well, it's the fault of the government.
Fearful for their future, for their lives, often people's houses, when they live above a pub, and they're very fearful about the industry.
But are things really that bad? I mean, the government says it's trying to promote growth. Are you just complaining a bit too much?
No, the reality is stark. We have never seen the pressure like this on our industry, on pubs.
I see QA Library says record profits with companies that are still making staff redundant. Yes, because they can extract more from fewer employees. Not the sky high energy prices, water prices, lack of trained staff, crazy beer prices. Yeah, people can't afford to go out and drink like in the past. So many people are drinking at home.
Key part of the social fabric of our country, and even during COVID. COVID was a very, very difficult and challenging period, but we had really helpful government support. At the moment, there is very, very little support for pubs and for the hospitality industry.
The pubs and restaurant sector has never fully recovered from COVID. While output across all services has risen more than 6% since the pandemic, food services have shrunk by 11%, and it may not get better anytime soon. The pubs industry says it is facing a crisis this year, with a survey suggesting that 1 in 5 of them could shut because of the increase in costs brought about by last year's budget. That is bad news for a chancellor desperately searching for economic growth anywhere she can find it. Pubs say Rachel Reeves would get more growth in their sector if she reversed some of her tax rises. But slower growth and weak public finances make that a challenge, with the Chancellor trying to turn the focus back onto the Conservatives.
This government is determined to turn around the poor performance of more than a decade when it comes to growth.
Okay, but once again, why is she not mentioning the B word? Like, she keeps saying about how the Tories ran everything into the ground, the Tories mismanaged the economy, but no mention of the B word. Like, I'm not saying that talking about Brexit is going to fix things, but it would at least open up the idea of, okay, how do we resolve the problem of Brexit? Well, wouldn't it make sense to have a better relationship with the European Union? Wouldn't it be better to try and build a bridge back to the European Union? Why can't Labour understand Brexit wasn't made to work because because they don't want to lose a few seats? And I bet if England had a voting system like Ireland, they would be more open more. I think they would be more open about it, but Reeves, sorry. Helpful support during COVID. I've drunk to your health in taverns. I've drunk to your health at home. I've drunk to your health so many times, I've almost ruined my own. That's nice. It's political capital. Yeah, I can understand the not talking about Brexit before the election, but now, reduce duty on pubs and raise duty on the supermarket. That's one way of dealing with it. But I think the pub culture is coming to an end. Fewer people have time to spend time in pubs. People want to be doing other things, it seems.
And we need to go further and faster.
Further and faster will be difficult, with manufacturers also under pressure, though their big worry is higher tariffs from President Trump.
When Labour started talking about their budget, and they talked about growth, I don't want to be some sort of Nostradamus. I'm not Nostradamus, but I had said, why is she focusing? I asked the question, why is she focusing so much on growth? There's a real risk in the future that something could happen that would run the risk of damaging that growth. Something could happen, some dramatic event could happen, and you're not able to achieve that growth. Then what do you do? But the Labour government decided what we're going to do is going to focus everything on growth. And then Donald Trump happened. And Donald Trump is talking about imposing tariffs everywhere. And what's worse about the tariffs is that the tariffs are on one day and then gone the next, which is potentially worse than just imposing the tariffs because it creates a massive amount of uncertainty. The Tories' culture war against drinkers has been going on for about 40 years. They had a culture war against drinkers. Stagnation, yes, where the economy, you have inflation, but there's no growth. Nostradamus ate my hamster. Put money into people's bank accounts. UBI, for example, which I'm a huge fan of, could be a good way to get things moving. Put money into people's bank accounts, they spend it. Give people cash, they will spend it. They'll spend it on everything. And this will help the local economy. And it creates stability because people know, okay, I have this money coming in. You can start a business. You can do whatever you want. You can pay off your debts. You can spend money. It's a win-win. The government start to see the economy grow because people are spending money. And people are better off. You also deal with a lot of issues related to poverty or there's also other social issues. Small business pubs should be exempt. Yeah, you can have an exempt, like what they're doing with certain government departments. There are exemptions in place, so you could have an exempt. But I think there are some exemptions. But it's all a bit confusing because at the end of the day, sometimes the small business owners will complain because they like complaining. They hope, okay, they're against everything new. I remember back in, was it 2002 or 2001, whenever the smoking ban was brought in, pubs said, oh, we'll close down, it'll end the pub trade forever. And then it adapted. It started serving food and having live music and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that this is something that pubs can adopt or can adapt to, an increase in taxes. But maybe some exceptions can be made. People using pubs went up. Outdoor heating for the smokers too, yes. Yeah, if people want to smoke outside. I'm pretty old, so I remember before the smoking ban, and you'd come home from a pub and your clothes would stink of cigarettes, and your eyes would be burning, and your throat would be sore even the day after. Anyway, guys, let's move on to our next topic, which of course is the NHS. Just want to cover a few things here. So, NHS England is coming to an end. The government have decided to grasp that nettle and see an end to NHS England. Kevin Lau, thank you so much for that super chat. Happy St. Patrick's Day when it comes. Yes, a few days to go. What is it with the United States celebrating St. Patrick's Day like not on St. Patrick's Day? Thanks so much for that, Kevin Ladd. It says here, according to The Guardian, 30,000 jobs could go in Labour's radical overhaul of the NHS. The jobs culled from the government's radical restructuring of the NHS will be at least twice as big as previously thought, with other parts of the health service now being downsized too. The staff shake-up caused by the NHS England abolition and unprecedented cost-cutting elsewhere will mean the number of lost posts will soar from 10,000 expected to between 20 and 30,000. Many thousands of people who work in the NHS's 42 integrated care boards, ICBs, in England will see their roles axed, as well as 10,000 working for NHS England and the Department of Health and Social Care, who have already been earmarked to go. ICBs, regional health service bodies, which oversee groupings of NHS trusts, employing 25,000 people between them. So Jim Mackey, NHS England's incoming new chief executive, has told the ICBs to cut their running costs by 50% by the end of the year. Wow. Given ICBs employ 25,000 people, that means about that half of them are going to go, as senior NHS officials said. This could lead to 12,500 posts being lost. In addition, Mackey has ordered that the 220 NHS trusts that provide care across England to cut the number of people working in corporate services such as HR, finance and communications. That could lead to thousands more officials losing their jobs, insiders say. See, on the surface, this may sound like a good idea. You're laying off huge amounts of staff that are in administrative roles or in HR or whatever. But if these people have been employed, then they're employed for a reason. Now, maybe there are people who are doing useless jobs, okay? But 30,000 of them? It sounds excessive. Now, is this a plan to downsize the NHS and rely more on the private sector? This is what we normally see when it comes to reducing the size of government. It's about making the government smaller and relying more on the private sector. The private sector, of course, is not the way to go when it comes to healthcare, because healthcare should be a right. It should not be something based on profit. And of course, private healthcare is based on profit. Don't give cash to my pal Dave, though. He does daft things such as buying an inflatable and which no holes and totally inflexible. Thanks for that, Freckled Bunny, I think. Oh my goodness. Wonder what the reaction from 55 Tustin Street Mouse. Yes, I think they're popping the champagne bottles with the idea that 30,000 jobs are being lost. Once again, maybe some people's positions are obsolete. Maybe it's a decision that the only way to get rid of a lot of people was to downsize. But if people are doing jobs, then maybe those jobs are necessary. We'll have to wait and see. Like, there's a lot of talk about there's a lot of talk about AI and stuff like that, but at the moment AI can serve as a help, as an assistant, but it can't replace yet. Private sector in services still come from the public purse by the way of contract, MPs agency contract. Yes, so it's a case of, if you rely on the private sector, it's still public money that's paying for private services. And private services are, of course, much more expensive than the public one, because they have to make a profit. So, we've heard this before when it came to nurses. So nursing staff, you pay a nurse a certain fee, but if you're paying agency staff, you're paying more, but the actual nurse who's doing the job is getting paid less. So there are no winners apart from the agencies that are providing the staff. They're making a huge amount of money out of the situation, and they're not actually adding anything. They're not giving anything extra that couldn't be done through the public sector. It's just that it was a political decision not to rely on the public sector.
So do we need this right now? Is it going to deliver? And also, this is really important. This puts it in the hands of Wes Streeting. Now, the Good Law Project did some work around where funding is coming from, where donations are coming from. And 60% of his donations since 2015 have come from either companies or individuals linked to private healthcare. What we're seeing right now in terms of waiting lists is a two-track system. So if you've got a simple thing to do, it's going to the private sector. We as taxpayers are paying the private sector. Okay, good, because the waiting lists are going down a bit quicker. If you've got something more complicated, it's staying in the NHS, which is more difficult.
But are you saying by mentioning the funding, that Wes Streeting has, I don't know if that's right or not, are you saying that he's basically being bought by private interests that's affecting his decision?
Listen, what
Otherwise,
I'm saying
is that not the implication of what you're saying?
Well, that is the implication of that work the Good Law Project has done. What I'm saying is that we have to be careful when we put this directly in the hands of politicians. We should look at where they get their donations from. Of course we should.
And that's why donations should be banned. I keep saying political donations should be banned. Political parties should be publicly funded. Is it more expensive in the short term? Yes, but it's much cheaper in the long term, because if a private healthcare company is donating to a political party or a politician in particular who's going to be the next health secretary, they don't donate out of the kindness of their hearts. They donate money as an investment. The same with the Tories. And I joked on many occasions about, if you wanted to make a huge amount of money in a very simple way, you just go down to the bank, ask for a £5,000 loan, say the bank manager asks, what's this loan for? And you say, I want to buy my local Tory MP. And then you donate £5,000 to your local Tory MP, and then you receive a PPE contract the following week for the value of about £1 million. Great return on investment there. But, joking aside, this is how businesses operate. You donate to a political party, you donate to an MP, you donate to somebody who's going to be in a position of power, and then you ask for something in return when that person is in a position of power. It's not controversial. This is how things work. This is how politics works. Remember, these people do not donate because they like the party or they like the rhetoric. In most cases, it's to get something in return. It could be a policy, it could be a contract, it could be moving the government in a particular direction. I hate political donations, corruption. We've legalized it, so it's no longer corruption. Corruption is illegal, but donating to a political party or donating a company donating to a politician, as long as it's transparent, is not deemed corruption. Is not considered corruption. Streeting reminds me of a Lego person. I describe him as the new Michael Gove, a very slippery individual. He's very good at speaking. He would be very good as a prime minister. Good as in the sense he would be very articulate. He's a very clever individual. I'm not knocking his abilities, but I have grave concerns about him because he's in bed with the private healthcare service, the private healthcare industry, and and he's in a position of power where he's getting rid of NHS England, and he's supportive of using the private sector to bring down the waiting list. And what is it about? It's about relying on the private sector, and the private sector are not going to go, okay, we'll help you out with the NHS waiting list, but then once it's brought down to a reasonable level, we're going to fuck off. No, it doesn't work like that. They want, once they get their foot in the door, they want the whole leg in the door, and then they want to be inside the building making decisions. Nicola Sturgeon is going to be a UK Prime Minister. I don't think that's going to happen. It's a nice thought. She would actually be a good Prime Minister, but I don't think that's going to happen. Thank God the NHS in Scotland is safe for now. For now is the, if and it needs to be protected. These things are not protected by default. There are people out there who want, and this is why it's so important to get money out of politics. Because if West Streeting was not receiving money from the private healthcare providers, then there'd be no incentive for him to allow them to operate. He would just say, well, there's no reason for you to, or if he did bring them in, there would be no real incentive for him to allow them to increase their influence over the NHS. Arlington National Cemetery has purged dozens of pages of information about famous Black, Hispanic and female veterans from its website to comply with Donald Trump's DEI executive order. Donald Trump is running the United States into the ground. Don't forget, West Streeting is against assisted dying bill, but he should not stop bill passing. He was for it and then he was against it. I don't know why that was the case. Just another one on this was classic. I just wanted to show you this clip here. This was amazing. It shows how crappy the media is once again. So this is for some reason, I don't understand this, but for some reason Sky News bring on very strange individuals to talk about the newspapers for the next day. And they normally have somebody who's like, for example, from the Daily Mail or the Express or the Sun or some right-wing rag. And they decide to, let's discuss the news for tomorrow or whatever. I honestly don't care I don't understand why they bring these right wingers on. But anyway, somebody from the Daily Mail was on Sky News, and listen to how she described a Labour MP.
So this is a really uncomfortable subject for a lot of Labour MPs, and they're being hauled into Number 10 to have meetings and to discuss what this might mean and to voice probably a lot of their misgivings, because I don't think you become a Labour MP to preside over benefits cuts, and it'll be really uncomfortable for a lot of them. The reality is, they have a huge majority. Will any of these Labour MPs rebel over the welfare reforms that we're expecting to see? I think that's unlikely. There'll be the usual suspects, people like Richard Bergen, who is a far-left MP. He stood up today.
Far left. Richard Bergen is a far-left MP. Far left. So it's okay to call Richard Burden far left, but we cannot call Nigel Farage far right. We cannot call Rupert Lowe far right, but we can call Richard Burden far left. And why is he far left? Because he's against the idea of cutting benefits or support or entitlements to disabled people. So if you're against cutting benefits for disabled people, I keep calling it benefits, entitlements. If you're against cutting entitlements to disabled people, you're far left. Okay. But remember, we're not allowed to call Nigel Farage far right. So the Daily Mail's position is, if Nigel Farage is not far right, but Richard Bergen, because he's against punishing vulnerable people, he is far left. He's not far left. He just has morals. Max, can you even define the far right? I would define the far right as a group of people, like a political ideology that believes that a person's ethnic background defines them as a person. I think that would be somebody. So, and you can apply that to whatever. So a far right individual would say, well, people from my ethnic background are good people, and people who are not from my ethnic background are bad people. I would define that as far right. Now that's far right from there are different ways to describe far right, but that's the first thing that would come to me, that would come to mind for me. I define somebody according to their ethnic background. I define them as an individual is not important. I define who they are according to that. And and you hear it from the likes of Reform UK, where they say, well, people from Muslim backgrounds, there's a problem with people from, like, they will say that all people from Muslim backgrounds, or most people from Muslim backgrounds, are a problem, or we need to keep this group of people out. They'll define which type of immigration can come in. They'll never come out and say, well, it's because of the color of their skin. It's more about that's the way I approach it. It's now you're going to find different definitions for far right all over the internet and within people's own minds. But for me, that's what it is. But remember, we're not allowed to describe Nigel Farage as far right. Closet Nazis. But it's even the term, the term Nazi or fascist or whatever. Like, fascist is more about economics. That's the way it started out, at least. Like, when it started out, it was more about economics. But would you describe? I'm not a big fan of these labels: far right, far left, left, right, because it depends on where you go. Like, for example, the Democrats in the US are described as left wing, but they would be conservative, at least, in Europe. So in Europe, we would describe the Democratic Party as conservative. Even Bernie Sanders would be described in the US. Bernie Sanders is described as radical left or far left, when in reality Bernie Sanders will be a social democrat in Europe. So these labels are not very useful. They have, it depends on the usage of them in whatever context you're in. And for example, so I think my definition of, based on, you've judged people based on their ethnic background or ethnic makeup, I think that's a pretty good one, because it can apply, if you go to different countries around the world, the people in those countries will define others or themselves in a particular way, and they will groupthink in this sense. And, you'll have far-right parties all over the world. So you can go to Greece and you'll find, or Israel, or you can go to the United States, or you can go to North Korea or wherever, and you'll find, well, in North Korea there isn't really any political parties, but you know what I mean. What was the reason you chose the name Maximilian Robespierre? I explained in the Ask Me Anything, but I'll say it quickly before we go, because we're almost at the end. I like the idea of the incorruptible. I'm against the idea of money in politics. I think we should get money out of politics, because if we get money out of politics, then we deal with corruption. And I think corruption is one of the driving forces behind so much of our problems. And, if we deal with the money in politics, we can start dealing with the issues that are important to ordinary people. And money in politics is holding us back. So guys, we're almost at the end. I want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you so much for your super chats. Thank you so much for your support. Thanks for smashing the like button. And I don't like doing that too often, because it makes me look like a Trump supporter. It's like Trump with this. Why is Trump always doing that? And I want to a big thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job, as always. So before we go, we have our one video, comedy video at the end. I hope you enjoy it. And it's funny. It's an old one, but it's a good one.
Are you overworked in your current job? Looking for something with a slower pace? Then consider a job at Ofcom. At Ofcom, work-life balance is everything. A typical day at Ofcom involves turning up around noon or whenever, watching cat videos for a bit, and ignoring countless messages asking us to do something. Anything. The right candidate will need resilience. At peak times, we can ignore up to 1,000 emails a day. At Ofcom, we're proud to say we deal with 100% of the complaint letters we receive. And there's the helpline too.
Hello, Ofcom. This person's saying there's a murder happening live on air. Fuck off.
Since we were founded in 2003, it's been our job to make sure the UK's TV...
Oh my god! I'm sitting on the wine bottle!
radio, mobile network, and postal services stay in rude... in rude... From day one, you'll be taught all of Ofcom's techniques. Complaints flooding in about a news programme that's using batshit thicko MPs as presenters who are interviewing other batshit thicko MPs from the same party about how great other batshit thicko MPs from that party are, while taking the piss by flouting established impartiality rules and amplifying dangerous conspiracy theories? Simply say it's not a news programme, and you can select all and delete those emails. We also make sure that the UK's radio industry is run efficiently, and have been proud to oversee the move towards as many as one local radio stations for the whole of the UK. Apply now and you'll benefit from flexible working. You can be flexible on any of our rules. You'll also save on travel. Most of us do none of our work from home. And you'll be left well alone by upper management because they couldn't give a shit. Ofcom. Very little help.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So guys, have a great weekend. I'll see you on Tuesday, same bad time, same bad channel. Stay safe and keep your eyes on the skies because Donald Trump is up to no good. No doubt. Have a great one. Take care. And I'll see you soon.